right, what is going on, everybody? We are back again with another episode. This week we have a special guest with us. We have Mack Brummel, Alex's brother, and he has a very interesting story to tell you guys later on in the podcast when we get to it. But this week's episode is about aliens, and there's been quite a bit of information coming out about aliens and about
aliens, man.
Their existence and their contact with us. So
they coming.
Let's just jump right into it.
Do you have the Israeli?
I do.
Report
I do.
up?
I do. I got it right here.
That to me is like maybe, I don't want to say the most credible, but pretty credible, because he's basically saying, like, if I would have released this a long time ago, I would have ended up in a hospital somewhere. But
right,
now
yeah.
I'm out and I really don't have anything to lose, and I think that people should know about this stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, so what it is very recently. Let me see when this was on December 10th. So actually, in the last 3 days, this is an article written by the Jerusalem Post, and it's Israel's former space security chief. And he's confirming the existence of aliens, but he's also saying that humanity is not ready for the aliens to contact us. So it's the group, I guess, of extraterrestrials that has been in contact with Israel and the United States go by the Galactic Federation. And so, kind of off topic, my first thought about that was like, oh great, we're in a Rick and Morty episode. Because that's exactly what the aliens in the alien government in that TV show is called. So that was my first thought. But then he goes on, because he's the retired Israeli space security officer, and he's also a professor in Israel now. And so he's he was in that space program for like 30 years. He was a 3-time recipient of Israel's Security Award. And he's gotten awards and accreditations and everything for being a professor of wherever he's a professor as well. So and like Alex said, he says that now he feels that he can talk about the contact that these aliens have had with the United States and with Israel, because he's not going to get chucked into a loony bin, because he's got enough credibility underneath his belt. Unlike our friend Bob Lazar, who we'll talk about probably here in a little bit. But yeah, so apparently the aliens have made agreements with the U.S. and with Israel not to contact anybody else on Earth, because they said that, or I guess Israel and the U.S. made agreements with the aliens, I should say, because they said that they're not, humanity's not ready, and if it comes out, and the aliens just start contacting us, it'll cause mass hysteria. Also, apparently, these aliens are just out to understand the fabric of the universe, and apparently there is a secret underground base on Mars that has American and alien representatives. So Elon Musk is over here trying to get to Mars, and lo and behold, we already have, the government's already put people on Mars, just super secret. Allegedly put people on Mars. So like, at some point, maybe the aliens just beamed these bros up like Scotty and took them to Mars real quick. So apparently there's Americans on Mars. So if you're missing family members, they might be on Mars. The government came to your house and just were like, hey, we're taking your dad. And you're like, but why? He might be on Mars.
No, they didn't die in the Vegas shooting. They went to Mars.
Yeah.
That's a bad joke. I do not mean that at all. I'm just bad jokes.
Apparently, also, President Trump, he knows about it, and apparently the creation of the Space Force was like in line with our relationship with these aliens, and apparently he was about to just like straight up out their existence, and the aliens were like, no, wait, bro, wait.
Let me say one thing to that point, because I remember texting Mac the day that Trump created the Space Force. I like screenshotted it the day that it got announced, and I'm like, so aliens, right? I mean, like, why would he do this? Like, this seems very silly, but it seems like as soon as he got into office, they're like, hey, Donnie, we're going to need you to sit down for this one. they're out there, and he's like, "Army, let's go, let's
Fuck,
fight them,
send him.
let's go, let's
And
go. We're
and they had to.
send the troops to space right now. Let's go conquer them. Let's go."
He's gonna look. He was, and everybody else was like, wait. We don't need to fight them. They're peaceful. They just want to understand the fabric of the universe. And
Well,
he was like, fuck them. This is America.
this is goddamn America.
All he did was pull out
They're
his
not gonna come
boombox.
on our soil.
All he did was pull out
Take
his
over our men
boombox
and our women and our children.
and
All right.
and click play, and all you heard was America. Fuck yeah.
Why the U.S. and Israel though? That's my biggest question. Like, why?
I don't know. It's very suspect because the U.S. That's my thing with this. Is like the U.S. and Israel have been like very buddy
I don't.
for a long time, and so they were just like, oh, well, these two places must run the world. One large country and one little spit of land on the Mediterranean, but they hold all the power.
I don't
It's
think
like
he
the most
necessarily
Western.
said it was limited to the United States.
I don't know, man.
and
All of
Israel.
this
I don't
article
think-
says is that it was just they only contacted or have been in contact with U.S. and Israel. Like, he didn't
Well,
expand on anybody else's.
Here's why I'm very much sus of that, is because in the podcast Joe Rogan had this last week with, I can't say the guy's name right, Jacques
I think it's Jacques Vallée or Valley or
Jacques
something like that.
Vallée, however you say. He talks with a very French accent.
Nice,
Oh,
from
God.
French.
And
France.
From Frenchland.
but there was a few things that intrigued me most about that podcast, and that I honestly didn't know. One of which was that apparently there were aircrafts that touched down very close to schools while the kids were out. This is why I didn't know this.
So the aliens are predators now? That's a bad joke.
No, not like that. So they touched down next to these schools where these kids were out on the playground. One was in Brazil.
I think one was in one was in Africa and one was in Australia, I think. Or was one in maybe there's more than two. I don't know. I know for sure one in Australia and one in Africa.
The one that they focused most on this latest documentary was one in Africa, because the creator of the documentary brought all of the kids that were on the school playground back together
I remember
20 years later.
hearing about that. I saw something about that too, like a trailer or something. Maybe it was a trailer for the documentary. I don't know.
So here's what happened in a nutshell. This craft touched down, and these children were playing on the playground. See this craft touchdown. These beings walk up to the playground. Some of these kids got within like 3 feet of these beings. And the ones that they talked to, they didn't speak in words or in English. The drawings that the kids drew, it was like apostrophes going from the alien's brain to their brain, right?
So they telepathically communicated with the children.
Correct. And the message that they relayed was that we were creating technology that was going to destroy humanity. And this is going back 20 years.
Okay, so like when
Like-
the nuclear arms race, well, plus it was even that's even sooner that
I think when the alien when they were visiting with these kids, I think it was after the nuclear arms, whole Cold
snap.
War and stuff like
This
that.
was
I
in
think it was
the-
like 20 years ago.
so
30 years
early
ago.
2000s.
This was like early to late 90s,
Like
I
late
want to
90s,
say.
yeah.
Okay, so we're
and
coming up on
like
like 30
first-
years ago.
First nuclear activity was 1940s, 1950s,
Right.
somewhere in there. And then there's another school in Australia reported almost the same exact thing with the same exact messages. So this documentary brought together this group of school children from Africa 20 years later, put them all in the same room again, asked them to recount everything that they recounted, that basically all of the same stories, put them through a polygraph, all of them pass. And then he goes to see the teacher of that class, who is now the head mistress of that school. And the head mistress now, who was the teacher then, has kept all of these drawings and all of these like recounts of the kids at that time. And they found in caves going back thousands of years pictures like the kids drew, and it's the prototypical alien, big head, almond eyes, small
Yeah.
body, like white skin suit type deal. Like they're not translucent, but they're like meager. They look like kids, basically. And they found cave engravements that look scarily identical, that go back thousands of years. They look almost exactly like the drawings from these kids in this Africa experiment who claim that these aliens touched down. Everybody saw it. Everybody has the same account. It's not like they were out for like clout or like, because 20 years ago, this would have been like, you're crazy. There's no way. Like these kids need to be submitted to a psych eval or something because this is wild. But when you start to correlate and connect the dots, it's like, okay, well, why these guys don't even like to talk about it anymore because so many people have asked to interview them. So many people have asked to like recount the experience. They're like, we're done with this. We don't care anymore. Like we know what happened. When you get us all together, we all still tell the same exact story. None of them have profited off of it whatsoever. They're all just normal people. But clearly there was something that happened where they all had the same hallucination at the same time, or they were visited by something.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, you got to watch the documentary, man.
Yeah,
that's
I might.
on.
That sounds...
I think that's what it's called, The Phenomenon or something like that.
And the second story was a group of guys that were working in the wilderness as lumberjacks, basically. And they were working a little bit late that day. They were behind on their quota. They're getting ready to leave the site way out in the middle of like this super isolated forest destination where they're basically logging. And they're getting ready to leave, and they see this bright light in the sky. And the guy in the back seat tells the driver, like, hey, pull over there. Let's go see what that is. And they pull up.
White people.
There's this craft hovering, about like 20 feet off the ground. And the guy in the back seat jumps out. And they're like, what are you doing? Do not get out of the car. Guy goes running up to this craft. They're all screaming at him. Don't do that. What are you doing? Get back in the truck. Well, apparently this craft like tilts to leave and then goes to like shoot off, and whatever sort of propulsion system it had gave like a propulsion back, like a gravity propulsion back at him, and like threw the guy like a rag doll, like 15 feet. And the dudes in the truck freaked out and they left.
Damn, they just left homie in the ground?
Basically left the guy for dead. Yeah, no.
Jesus.
They went back.
Look it up.
After
This
they came
true
to, they
story.
went back.
So they get about 5 miles, and the driver's like, we can't leave. I forget the guy.
Fuck, they drove 5 miles and were like, oh shit, we should probably go back for Bob.
And it might have been 2 miles. It might have been 10 miles. I don't know.
Damn, that man just got ragdolled 15 feet, watched his buddies drive off, and it was just like, shit.
Yeah. Basically, the driver comes to. He's like, we're not leaving Travis, if that's his name, out there. We got to go back. They go back to the same spot. Travis is gone. The ship is gone. Everything's gone.
Fuck yeah, Travis is gone. He probably started walking.
They're like, holy shit, we got to go to the local law enforcement. And this is in the 70s. I think this is like 72, 77, somewhere in that time frame.
Okay, so the cops probably thought these dudes were just drunk.
They go to local law enforcement and say, we just lost our buddy in the woods and he was taken by a craft floating in this isolated location. They're like, yeah, sure, go to jail. They lock him up immediately.
Go to jail.
Charge him for murder.
Go to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
They lock all these dudes up. They're like, okay, tell us who's the one who killed him. Like, where is he buried? They're like, all of them stick to their guns. All of them are like, look, man, this is what happened. Like, we're not fucking with you. This is what happened. 5 days later, after they've deployed search dogs and rescue missions and this, that, and the other, who shows up? Travis on the edge of town. And not in the same spot where he was abducted, but right on the edge of town, close enough to a road so he could walk and get help. but isolated enough so they wouldn't be seen bringing him back, right?
My
And
man's
so
my man's got ragdolled by aliens. The aliens felt bad and came back, and he was just over here with thumb in the wind, like, I need a ride. And the alien's like, we got you, fam. We're gonna take you about 5 miles outside of town and kick you out of the spaceship.
the crazy thing is he has the facial hair growth, right?
For being
He's
gone for how long?
for 5
5
days.
days.
5 days.
So what he recounts is he wakes up in this craft, and he describes it all as like if you would shave out and make aluminum just like this perfect like tube.
Seamless.
No seams, no welds, no nothing. Like they bent this material out. He wakes up, he grabs this like knife looking thing, like not spatula, whatever they call those knives that they use.
Spackling knife?
Scalpel.
He just like grabbed at like a thing next to him and just started like attacking, right? Is that
he
that's
just
how the
started
story
wielding
goes?
it. He didn't attack anybody, but he starts wielding it. And there's again, same story, almond like eyes, big head, small bodies. And they're both like startled and they like kind of back away. And he finds himself going down this hallway, except it's so small his shoulders are running into the sides of this hallway. And then he gets into what he describes as the command center of this spaceship, and he just starts hitting buttons like crazy, trying to be like, maybe one of these is gonna let me out. And then he comes to the conclusion like, holy shit, like if this is a craft, like I could crash this thing, and that's not good for anybody. And then he describes this female and another male coming to get him. He said that they look like humans. When I was visualizing it, I visualized it like sandy cheeks in the ocean. You know? She's got like her glass helmet on, and then like a spaceship suit on. And they like come to grab him, and he's like relieved, like, oh, you guys look like humans. Like you must be here to save me. They won't talk to him. They bring him to like this hangar, and he doesn't know if this is on the ship or back on Earth or what it is, but they bring him to this hangar where there's a whole bunch of other circular flying disc like objects. And he gets there and he's just starting to be like, where am I? And then they hold a rag up over his nose.
Chloroform.
He passes out. He wakes up just as the craft is flying away. He walks to the nearest road where he finds help, goes back to town, and corroborates his story with his buddies that have been in jail for 5 years, or not 5 years, 5 days for murder. And still to this day claims that that's exactly what happened.
They made a movie out of it.
That's insane.
Yeah, but fucking Hollywood changed the end apparently.
Well,
yeah,
to where they don't show any of the hangar or anything. They go more like a Hollywood, like they go into a hostage situation or something. I don't know. I've never seen the movie.
Man got abducted by some of these homies.
Yeah. I believe it. I feel like back then, like in 1979, that's when that happened. I feel like back then, people like that, I mean, they didn't want to be looked at as like crazy, you know. Especially like some people that work there. They're like they cut lumber for a living. Like those are just like some small town. Like they got more to lose than they have to gain by telling some crazy story like that.
True.
I don't know.
Well, you don't want to be labeled as a loony bin in town.
Lunatic,
you know? Like you said, Mac, especially in small towns, they don't want to be the guy known in town. Shit, Commander Fravor, after he saw the Tic Tac, goes back to the Navy base, and they're like, they show movies every day, and like for a week it was like Independence Day, Men in Black, like Mars Attacks, like they were fucking with them. It's like, oh, the guy that chased the alien. Like, sure, yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what you saw. Like, even in the Navy, they're fucking with you about that. You go back to regular small town fucking Idaho, and you go to get a beer at the local tavern, and they're like, oh, there's Travis, the alien
that guy that got abducted by aliens.
I think you're right. It was Arizona.
Even worse. I mean,
ain't no damn trees in Arizona.
Well, and that's like the common denominator with a lot of these stories. These people don't want to be known as the alien person.
Well, because
it's not like they're writing books and like trying to gain fame from this story. They're like, this is just what fucking happened. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm just telling my story because this is how it went down.
Yeah, I don't even want to do this because I know it's going on the internet and you never know.
Right.
You never know with the internet.
Yeah, like Bob Lazar. I think we talked about Bob Lazar a little bit. I think way back when we first started this, but that dude. Who are the guys that Joe was interviewing? They were talking about Bob Lazar. It was
Jeremy Corbell.
Yeah, Jeremy
and
Corbell.
Bob Lazar.
Was it? Oh, he had them on. He had Bob on. There was another one I watched with two other guys, the guys that knew Bob.
Commander Fravor.
No, I missed that one. It was
that's the guy with the Tic Tac video.
Right, yeah, but it was like this old dude and this guy that had made a movie. It was
I think Jeremy Corbell went on with another guy.
Yeah, he did. It
made
was
a movie about or maybe Jeremy Corbell went on with another person who he made the documentary about Bob Lazar with. And then kind of shortly after, he went back with Bob Lazar.
Yeah, it was something like that. But anyways,
Reagan. Hi, Reagan.
Little alien.
Alex, there's a lot of alien in your room.
But yeah, so no, but yeah,
now
they
for
talked
the grand
about
reveal.
I've
captured a little alien. She may look like she's 4, but she's 104.
But yeah, no, they actually talked about Bob and Bob Lazar himself. He worked, I guess, at Area 51, and he has said for years and stuff, that he has seen alien spacecraft and seen like humanoid looking figures that they're like they're not dissecting, they just have them like captured in Area 51 and like interrogating them and stuff and like breaking down their ships and stuff, and Bob has taken people on tours, I guess, when he was still working there, and like knew all of the tunnels and everything like the back of his hand. And so like everybody thought that Bob was a crazy person. And he got to the point where he stopped talking about it because nobody believed him.
Well, and one of the craziest parts about Bob Lazar's story is that they purposely went back and deleted his history at MIT working for Los Alamos. And Jeremy Corbell talks about how they went into Los Alamos before they started publishing anything. And he's walking past the receptionist and she's like, "Oh, hey, Bob." And like, he's walking through there and,
everybody knows
exactly
him.
Where everything is. And he's recounted technology that they had at that time, that they even like a hand scanning thing where it scanned the density of the bones in your hands. And apparently that's how you got through to special access doors and stuff. And at the time, Los Alamos was like, "Oh, that's crazy. We didn't have that technology. We still don't have that technology." Well, now there's been pictures leaked of that same technology that Bob talked about at Los Alamos that they once claimed was all a fabrication and a lie. And now the more things that come out, the more Lazar's story checks out.
Right. Yeah, and they just tried to discredit him for years and make him out to be the crazy person. And that was the thing for a lot of this stuff, is that they just let the people basically dig themselves a hole. Like they'd come out and say something about it, and everybody was just like, "Nah," because it sounded too far fetched. Or people would there'd be other people that would come out, and then the thing would just get saturated with a bunch of fake, I don't want to say news, but like fake stories and fake encounters and a bunch of other stuff like that, so that you just had to, like, these guys like Jeremy Corbell and the guys that make the documentaries and stuff have to wade through so much crap to get to the actual truth. And then, lo and behold, here comes Bob Lazar stuff, like checking out more and more. But for the longest time, everybody didn't believe him because of, you had to get through all the phonies and the fakes and all the craziness.
Yeah.
Well, and they would immediately start discrediting him, saying like, "Oh, we've contacted Los Alamos, and they've told us that Bob Lazar never worked there." When he was on the front page of the Vegas newspaper for putting basically a jet engine in a Honda. And then after that is when they reached out to him and said, "Hey, do you want to come work on a propulsion project that we've got going on here at Los Alamos?" Sure. They stick him in a pod with another scientist who basically indicates that his last partner died trying to reverse engineer this propulsion system that they've recovered, that they don't know where it came from. And I know we've talked about it before, so excuse me for reiterating, but he described it like if you dropped off a motorcycle, a dirt bike, back with the Comanche Indians, right? They probably would have figured out that, like, okay, this is the material that this system runs on, like gasoline. And like if we put the key in the ignition and turn it to the right and then twist the handlebar, that's how we get it to go. But to sit down and the Cherokee Indians to sit there and engineer that on their own was impossible. There's no way that you're going to be able to do it. And that's basically what he was working with this system that somehow propulsed itself with no gasoline. Gravity was almost mute when you're talking about whether it could go up or down or side to side. You know, it moves, it behaves in ways that we have no idea how to figure out how this works the way that it does.
I know, it's crazy. And, you know, it's just all going to stay hidden as much as it can for as long as it can. Because the Galactic Federation and our government has deemed us unfit mentally.
Well, Edna says, I guess we'll never know.
Well, she's talking about dinosaurs. So, Ed, and we're going to take a minute. I know it's been a minute. We've just been rolling, but welcome everybody in the chat. Poison Fantasy, how are you doing? Squash, my little brother's here. What's up, my mans? Ed Nuts, good to see you again. So Ed Nuts asked, did the aliens take the dinosaurs? Yes or yes? And then she said, you know, think about it. The dinosaurs were here for years, and they had to have been an immense amount of them. Why haven't we found more fossils? They should be popping up everywhere. My brother is mad confused and asked if she was being serious or not. And then Ed Nuts just said, well, I guess we'll never know. So that's a recap of what's happened so far in the chat. But yeah. Well, but yeah, you'll think about it. Hasn't been, and I'm just going off your chat message that you put in there, Alex. Like, we didn't really have any like alien encounters, or at least much historical record of any alien encounters until after we bombed the shit out of Japan, and then started doing tests. And then lo and behold, here comes Roswell and a bunch of other stuff. And like we said in the last one, like other instances of like aliens or supposed alien spacecraft running from like Russia all the way along basically the top of the world and the top of the U.S., hitting like nuke bases and just messing around with nuke bases. There was one that they did, I want to say, if I remember right, it was like in Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula in Ukraine or something down there back when Russia was still occupying it. There's a nuclear base there, and they like came and started like, they turned everything on basically. The aliens came, turned everything on, were about to like launch nuclear missiles, and then they just shut it all down and like left. And then like multiple like Russian soldiers have corroborated that story and said there was this like massive light show outside, and everybody was losing their minds because it was about to be World War III, and then like it just stopped and they went away. So
there's crazy. Been an unreal number of cases in which nuclear missiles have been detonated but not, or like have been detonated but not sent, like not actually launched in the US and in Russia. There it's like in the thousands. I think it's like 1,800 in Russia, and then something like,
this is crazy because like
I've
never heard of that.
Yeah, that documentary, The Phenomenon, covers it a lot. Yeah, and they have a couple of people tell their story about how just like weird unknown crafts show up, and then like it's almost like they're sending signals to the controls that control all the.
So they're just like blowing nuke missiles up underground.
Well, they're not going off. It's like they're being detonated, or like I don't know what the correct terminology is, but it's like, okay, this missile is going to launch.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say okay. That's why I would get confused, because I was like, detonated means that they exploded, and there would be like millions, like hella people dead. So they probably were just like cutting them on and getting ready to launch them, like they did at that base in Russia.
Yeah, and that's happened like thousands of times.
That's like insane.
It's about to happen, and then it stops.
And another correlation that goes with the whole nuclear theory is the fact that Fravor talks about when he was engaging with this thing that his missile system locked up. And this isn't the first or the only time that it's been reported that when these crafts are detected, the missile system completely locks up. The nuclear launch codes lock up. Like, we couldn't have launched a nuclear attack if we wanted to, because these systems were locked up.
Yeah.
And that's technically an act of war. So if this was another country that was doing this, they would be basically declaring war on us at that time by engaging basically in that sort of warfare.
Jamming.
Exactly. So it corresponds with the idea that they started really paying attention to us when we started dropping nukes on each other. And they're like, wait a minute, these chimps down here have really figured out a way to just fuck up the entire Earth.
The aliens looked at it and they said, hold on a minute, the ant farm's getting crazy.
Yeah, this little ant farm, this zoo we've been watching, they figured out a way to destroy the entire zoo. So maybe we should step in and go to a school in Africa and talk to these children and say, hey, the technology that you're creating will destroy the Earth if it continues this way.
They found children and said,
it's just,
stop it.
It lines up in, like, there are only so many points that you can get to. And then again, 90% of the shit that's out there is all some guy trying to make a buck, saying he got abducted, saying he saw this, she saw that, aliens beam me up. You know, like SNL has a really funny skit with I forget the actress, but she's hilarious, where she's basically that like trailer park character saying the aliens beam me up and like, you know, whatever. And that's 90% of it, right? Is all just goons out there who are trying to gain some fame from it. But then there's like this 10 to 15% of these stories where you start connecting the dots and you're like, wait a minute, this is all making a lot of sense. Like, and this person in Africa has never spoken to Travis in Utah or Arizona, who had very similar experiences, or this school in Africa that had a very strangely similar experience as the school in Australia, where they touched down, they talked to him, they said the same fucking message. They've all been put through lie detectors. And it's like, well, why, like, they don't want this. So why would they continue to say that this is what happened if it wasn't true? You would think one of them would come out and be
eventually
like, hey,
they would get sick of like the getting grilled and be like, all right, we made the whole thing up. Like,
I'm sick of the voicemails. We made it up. We all got together at lunch one day and decided that this is what was going to happen. Like, it just doesn't work that way. That's not how corroboration works.
Right.
Especially when it's on the opposite sides of the world. The people have never been in contact with each other and they're telling the same story.
Right. Chat is Hugo's here and he said he ain't no ant and the aliens are welcome to catch these hands. And Ed Nuts helped you out with that actress's name and said it was Kate McKinnon.
Is that fire?
There you go, Kate McKinnon.
Yeah. I want to see you fight an alien, Hugo. I'll pay money.
I'd so much money.
I will take Mike Tyson and Logan Paul or Jake Paul, whichever one of the Paul brothers as the opening fight to the main card of Hugo v Alien. Whenever that's supposed to happen.
Hugo, I love you to death, but I think that you would catch some mighty strong laser beam hand. That's another thing that they talk about in the podcast.
I don't know, man. I feel like you said that they were kind of small when they talked to the children, about small enough to punt. So I'll just go punt an alien real fast.
Need technology to win
because they're tiny.
Fair,
Yeah, turn the lasers
no
off.
match.
Turn the lasers off, alien. Let's go. I'll punch you back into your spaceship.
But there's also a lot of the people that claim to have like abductions, like who have claimed to be taken up and have like some significance behind their story. They all say that they were tied down with lasers. But like, if I was to get a laser pointer, we have one for the cat downstairs, and I was to shine it at the wall, that laser wouldn't stop until it got to the wall or until it got to the TV, because that's how light works, right? But the lasers that they work with, I could shine it and it would stop halfway towards the wall, which would indicate that it's not a laser like you and I think about. It's not just a beam of light. It's some sort of energy that's controllable to where I can control it and I can use it to tie people down. And they found physical marking evidence on people of like that Travis guy. I really hope his name is Travis.
It's Travis?
But what if
Travis?
Yeah.
What if they just capture us like Obi-Wan was captured in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones? And we're just stuck like this.
The reason why people
our Lord and Savior Obi-Wan.
The reason why like that Jacques guy thinks that Travis guy didn't get abducted for like scientific or like studying reasons. They think when they shot him like a rag doll, they were like, "Oh shit, dude!" Like we
like
just
I said,
fucked
they're
that
like,
guy up. Like we got to bring him on board to make sure he gets healthy, which would be like 5 days.
So they backblasted him 15 feet and broke a couple of bones, and they were like, "Ah, fuck."
Dude, what if they killed him and they brought him back to life? What if they can do that?
Who knows? Right? But basically, they had to put him in like a bacta tank, Star Wars. If you guys said no, and like let him heal for 5 days, and then they brought him back. Dude, that's crazy.
I believe that guy. For some reason, there, like Alex was saying earlier, like 90% of alien stories are just goofy, man. But I think the people who sift through all of them, make documentaries, who are really known as like credible, like people who investigate shit like this. I think that like 10% of them, and they really kind of had narrowed in, and that's what they're making documentaries and stuff about now. I think that stuff is more or less pretty legitimate, and it's definitely worth exploring to see like, advances in technology and stuff like that. I mean, answers have got to be there.
I feel like the guys that go through like all of that like crap and finally sift out the good stuff, I feel like they're pretty, I would believe them more than anything else, because they put the time in and actually like made it through all the garbage.
Well, their job is to be a skeptic.
Yeah.
The producer of this most recent documentary that I can't think of the other guy's name that was with this Jacques.
I hate it's you.
Sorry,
Jacques. He's French. His name is Jacques.
To me, his name should be Jacques.
That's because you're American.
Jacques Vallée.
You're not French.
You know Jacques?
No, I know a Jacques.
Jacques. Anyway, the producer
James
of that,
Fox is the other guy.
James Fox, the producer of the James Fox documentary, was the guy that did Ready Player One and Ready Player Two now. And he sat down with a state senator, I believe. It was some sort of politician.
He was the Senate majority when Obama was in office.
Yeah.
What the hell is that guy's name?
Mitch McConnell.
Harry Reid?
Oh.
Harry Reid?
I think Harry Reid is right. Yeah, I think that's correct. Anyway, these aren't small names that are going on to this production list, coming out and saying that, yeah, we believe that there's something else out there and we're as close as we've ever been to figuring out what it is. Like, it's not like some dude in a basement and another dude in a basement and like one guy that owns like a production company that's put out like 4 documentaries. Like these are well-respected people within a lot of different communities, all basically starting to come together and say, hey, what we know is not even a fraction of what we know, essentially.
Right, and now we're starting to
And
get like drip fed from the government that UFOs are real, and here's a bunch of stuff. So maybe they're starting to groom us to be ready for the Galactic Federation to come down and be like, "What's up, motherfuckers? We're
Dude,
real and we're here."
People are gonna freak out. I mean,
I know,
if you have that happen, I think our generation will be fine.
the
Like,
old people's heads are gonna explode.
boomers, yeah, dude. Well, you take people who, I mean, like, there's a lot of people who just base like every decision of their life off like their faith, and people like that if their reality gets shattered, you just don't know how people like that will respond. Some people will just shuck it off and be like, no, it's not real, it's just more people making up crazy stuff. But some people,
I feel like
will have a hard time.
Maybe depending on what these aliens look like, I feel like some super religious people are just gonna be like, they're just gonna go one of two ways. You're gonna be like, they're angels, or oh, these are demons, kill them now. Like, they're gonna start chucking the Bible and holy water at them. These aliens are just gonna be like, hey man, please don't throw things at me.
Well, there's got to be like, okay, so let's entertain this Israeli head of space, whatever, this guy who says that there's a galactic federation that is in contact with the U.S. and Israel. Like, there's got to be more than one type of like alien, from different places, or would you really think that just like one other like humanoid type species has come to visit us, and we're just dealing with one other group
I don't know, like, I guess everybody on this planet all kind of looks the same, so I mean, maybe it would be kind of far-fetched to say that literally every other life form out in space looks like what our vision of a classic alien looks like. So I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting to see if there's multiple species, I guess.
Well, and then you get into the whole theory of like interdimensional existence, That's where I really start to get shook on this. I'm like, I just don't have the comprehension to think about that we're in this dimension and there's another dimension where we are the same people, but either sped up or slowed down, living, breathing within the same realm, and things happen similarly, but they happen differently. Like, that's where, like, okay, in theory, there's another dimension of us, right? But it's fast forwarded 500,000 years. If we had the ability to come back in time and tell ourselves, hey, if you keep nuking shit, things is going to get really bad for you guys. Like we've learned through history. And if they're trying to come back and tell us by going to schools and saying, hey, technology is going to destroy you guys if you don't slow down, that's where I start to get lost in all of the... But to me, that seems like the most reasonable, if you will. Like, it's almost that I have a hard time comprehending that there's another being that's living in the same galaxy, same space and time, and they're just coming down here to run interference on ourselves. Especially with that Travis's story where he recounts seeing a female with a glass bulb around her head. Like, to me, that makes more sense that somehow, somewhere in the future, we figured out how to go back in time and try to run interference on ourselves.
So instead of aliens, you think perhaps more likely it's time travel.
Correct.
And like, so you would be more inclined to believe, I don't know, whatever this dude's name is, this guy that's been running around for forever, that's popping out and going, I've been to like the year 6000 and this is what's happening, and they're hunting me, and he's like he's basically just like running through time to avoid getting arrested or something.
Sounds like the Umbrella Academy.
Some shit like that.
Yeah, especially if you've seen the Umbrella Academy, it's kind of easier, like I'm not even saying easier. It would be easier for me to think about extraterrestrials who have been formed on a different planet, who have been looking at us like ants, who are now starting to run interference and coming down and saying, hey, these monkeys are going to blow themselves up if they keep going at this rate. Like, that is easier for me to digest, to understand. I just don't know how you get the creation of life at that level. It makes more sense to me that somewhere down the road, humanity, which is unlike anything else that we've actually been able to lay our hands on, we've progressed so much throughout time that we're able to take a step back in time. And maybe that's why we get the iconic almond eyes, big head, like, they're like, well, let's make them look like aliens. And it's really just like AI, kind of robots, if you will. I don't know. If we had a carcass, it would be a lot easier to be able to figure out what it is and where it came from. But that's like the last missing part of the equation, is we don't have.
Well, didn't Bob Lazar say something about there being like aliens in Los Alamos? Like,
he thought he maybe he
maybe
like,
saw one
when he talks about it on, like, what I think of when I think of Bob Lazar telling a story, I think of Joe Rogan, because that's the one where we got like the most information. And he said that he may have seen a small child-sized, but it could have been a doll. They could have been making things that they were trying to fit into these spacecrafts. Like, he did not want to go on the record saying, I saw like an alien like that. He made very, very careful. He was very careful choosing his words so that he didn't say that.
Gotcha.
I honestly, though, kind of going off what Alex was saying, I feel like it's a mix of like everything. Like, I feel like in existence, there's so much like interdimensional, sure, like coming from other planets and they have the technology to travel interstellarly, sure. Like, I wouldn't discount anything if there's evidence to prove that any of those exist. I'm like 100% open to at least listening to it. I'm not going to go around believing in all of it, but I feel like the universe is just, there's so much that we don't know that you could entertain any possibility at this point where we're at, and seriously think, oh yeah, shit, that might be true, or we don't know enough to say yes or no. So it's fun to think about, but I would say it's just a mix of everything, honestly.
Well, that's the thing, is we don't know, right? And I feel like that's the thing that drives people most crazy is
not knowing.
Like, on the cover of New York Times, they're talking about unidentified objects, and there being a special operation within the Navy, I believe it is, to try to figure out what these things are. And then you have Bob Lazar, a historied, respected person of the Navy, who has been asked to go track down this Tic Tac object.
Not Bob Lazar.
Colonel
Fravor. Where it's like, okay, he heard it straight from command base that they've been trying to figure out what these things are. And it's not one sighting. It's like dozens and dozens of sightings, to the point where they canceled the training and they want him to go try to figure out what this is. And they've got it on radar.
Yeah.
And then
they have it on his camera that's on board his plane that, tracks objects for his weapon systems and all types of shit.
And then you talk to Bob Lazar and Los Alamos, and then you see the picture that got leaked right before our last podcast of the guy who took a picture with his iPhone. And then you have this Israeli guy who's saying, hey, yeah, there's a World Galactic Federation. Like, there are just too many things out there at this point in time where you really can't say, if you're in a court of law and you brought all this stuff into evidence, the jury would at least say, yes, there's something there.
Yeah, you got to take a look at it.
These crafts, whether they're man-made or they're extraterrestrial, these are real. It's happening. We're seeing them. Navy ships are almost flying into them. Navy aircrafts are almost flying into them. They have handfuls of near misses with these crafts. Like, these are real. They're out there. And whether we've created them or not is still up to some
debate.
Sort of speculation, I guess. But you just can't dismiss it as a whole.
Right.
These are real things that are happening.
Squash, I am not well versed on what the Kardashev scale is. Maybe you could just type it up real quick and let us know, because I have no idea what the Kardashev scale is. I could look it up, I guess. But
I'm not familiar with that either.
What is it?
The Kardashev scale. Kardashev scale. All right, the Kardashev scale is a method of measuring civilization's level of technological advancement based on the amount of energy they are able to use. The measure was proposed by Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev in '64. The scale has 3 designated categories. Type 1 civilization, also called a planetary civilization. Okay, let me look at this image right here. In layman's terms, it's basically a ranking of how advanced a civilization is. So he's saying that, so his scale goes like this. A type 1 civilization can harness all the resources of a planet. Carl Sagan has estimated that Earth rates at about a 0.7 on that scale. So we're not even like a full type 1 civilization. A type 2 civilization can harness all the radiation of a star. Humans might reach type 2 in a few thousand years. So we're kind of... We're getting there. And a type 3 civilization can harness all the resources of a galaxy. Humans might reach type 3 in a few 100,000 to 1,000,000 years.
Jeez.
So we're kind of on the like real lower end of this, and we may or may not be getting visited by people that can just straight up, they're a type 2 civilization, perhaps even a type 3 civilization. If we get visited by a type 3 civilization and they're out here just harvesting all of the resources of a galaxy, we're fucked.
Well, see, that would make sense though. Honestly, if there is a civilization out there that needed all the energy, like including where we're at, and we started making nukes that could blow up a part of where they get their resources from, they'd be like, "Whoa, no, we need you. You're part of the puzzle here. Yeah,
please stop killing yourselves."
Yeah.
Well, and it's also very interesting how they're all seen, not all, but a lot of them are seen very close to or underwater.
Yeah.
So if they were harvesting water, just say they needed water for whatever they were doing, right? Whatever chemical combustion manufacturing they were doing. That would be like us starting to look at, I don't know, ants or whatever. And if they were eating all the soil and we couldn't produce plants and couldn't harvest livestock over that soil anymore, that might be good reason for us to step in and say, hey, we got to move this ant farm over closer to that ant farm so they don't destroy the soil in which we need to gain what we're looking for.
Right.
So if we start to soil the water and we start to, fuck this all up, then we would step in at the same token and say, hey, ants, we got to start moving some pieces around here to make sure you don't destroy the soil, i.e., they might step in and say, wait a minute, we need your oceans because you have tons and tons and tons, billions of tons of water that we need to do what we're doing.
I need to go say goodnight to Emmy real quick. I'll be right back.
All right,
okay.
Sounds good.
So I don't know. I don't know how it all works. I don't know why they're hanging around. I don't know. Nobody knows why. But I think that there are entities out there, the quote unquote 3-letter organizations.
Yeah.
FBI,
CIA.
NSA, whatever, CIA, that have clearly more information than what we do, that aren't sharing that information for the betterment of society. But we need it. We're at the point where we need that information.
Right.
We should be able to comfortably give people an idea of what's happening, because It's recognize that it's real.
Right, yeah, we just need to come out and be like, yes, this is for sure a thing. Prepare yourselves. Squash was saying that energy consumption for a Type 2 or 3 civilization would be like a Dyson sphere at that point. Squash, you might be able to elaborate on what a Dyson sphere is for us. But in saying that, he's saying a nuke wouldn't matter to an alien civilization. So based off the energy consumption that if these like extraterrestrials or whatever are at a Type 2 or 3 civilization, then us blowing ourselves up with nukes is the least of their concerns right now. They're kind of like, okay, they're probably looking at that like, all right, well, we were there thousands of years ago and we don't really care. What the hell is a Dyson sphere? Squash, why are you so smart? Stop saying things in chat that make you have to, now I have to look shit up. A Dyson sphere is a hypothetical megastructure that completely encompasses a star and captures a large percentage of its power output. What the? That
sounds cool.
That's insane. Yeah. So what my little brother was saying, that like, because we mentioned nukes and that kind of stuff just recently, he was like, if a Type 2 or 3 civilization is what's visiting us, they really don't care about our nuclear capabilities because they probably got a Dyson sphere around a star harvesting all that energy. So they're just like, oh, look, the monkeys have nukes. Oh, it's cute. Like, but anyway, now that Mack's back and we've kind of gone all around the alien stuff, I think it's a good time for us to hear about Mack's encounter with the UFO while we were down at South Padre.
And I want to preface Mack's story with kind of the similar things that we've been talking about. Mack and I we had our own podcast together before Ben and I had a podcast together. Our third member turned out to be not super stable, and Mack has 2 kids, and it's not easy for him to get on all the time. We've talked about aliens in the past. It's the same kind of theory as to, it's fun to think about, but the 2 of us have never really had, I mean, you could say like, oh, we saw this in the night, but it's not, it could have been an airplane, right? Or it could have been this, or it could have been that. But the story that Mack will share in a second is one that is not done in attempts to be like outlandish or like, oh, aliens are real, man, like it's a true recount. He was hesitant to even tell me the next morning. In fact, I didn't find out until he was Skype calling my sister the next morning, and I walked into his room at the Airbnb and heard him talking about it. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And then I got the full story. So I just want to preface with that it's not some way of trying to gain, there's no personal gain to be found from this story.
And opposite, it's just, actually, everyone's gonna make fun of me.
Yeah, it like many of the recounts of like the documentary and stuff. So
yeah, no, I caught shit for it for when the next morning, because I told Alex, and I didn't really want to tell anyone, but told Alex about it. And in fact, the person that was with me, because I was with one other person, he didn't even want to tell anyone, and he said it'd be dumb to tell anyone because there's no way people are going to believe us, and he didn't really want to put himself through the getting made fun of. So I'm not even going to say his name anyway, because I didn't text him and ask him if I could or anything. I know he was that night was like, no, let's not tell anyone. He didn't want to put up with people giving us shit, but I'll kind of tell the story. So we were in South Padre, Texas for Hugo's bachelor party. And we were there for Thursday. We got there Thursday at around like 5:00, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. And then we left Sunday morning, and it was Thursday night. Everyone had had passed
it was the
out.
first night we were there.
It was the first night we were there. Pretty much everyone was asleep. Me and the person that I went down to the beach with, I'll probably end up saying his name eventually, but I'm gonna try and not at first.
And that tells you a little bit about this story, because Ben was on that trip and Ben had not heard of this story. I didn't give him any details of the story because the first thing Ben said was like, well, yeah, but they were pretty wasted, right? And I was like, actually, no, the contrary.
Yeah, well, because I was like, okay, so bachelor party, and we got like a wasted. Everybody was like at some point, like it was some degree of faded the whole weekend. So
I was wasted and asleep by the time all of this goes down.
I think, Anyway.
So I'll remind you guys that when we got to so that morning when we left, because we flew down, I had a really bad cold, like a head cold, like a cough, and like we were very congested. And when we flew down, my ears like never popped after we flew. So I was dealing with like feeling like I was underwater, and I just really wasn't feeling that. I wasn't feeling so great. So I drank, no doubt about it. I drank probably like 3 beers on my own, and then we played some drinking games. But I never really got like drunk to the point where I felt very drunk. You know, I think in total I probably had maybe 4 or 5 beers like all together that night. And then at midnight I stopped drinking, and I had a big Yeti, whatever thermos or whatever the hell you call it. And I was filling that up with water out of the fridge and just like chugging water, because I didn't want to feel really shitty the next day. Because that was my biggest fear, was like, if I'm sick and I just get super fucked up the first night, then tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and like, it's going to ruin like the day. So at around midnight, I stopped drinking. I was drinking a lot of water. And me and the person that saw this whole thing with me was he was kind of like me. He really wasn't that drunk. And this is someone that I've known for a very long time. And I know when he's super drunk, and me and him really weren't that drunk. We hadn't seen each other in 7 years, and we like grew up together. So we're best friends. And I like Ruben, I think, was still awake or something like that, but everyone else was asleep. And me and my friend decided, let's go down to the beach. Cause there's like a path you can walk and get access down to the beach. Let's just go down and walk on the beach and just like chat and catch up, because we hadn't seen each other in 7 years. So it's probably like 3:30 in the morning at this point. And we go down to the beach, and there's nobody down there, and this is Thursday night, technically Saturday, or technically Friday morning, like at 3:30 in the morning, and there was nobody down there on the beach. And we went down on Friday and Saturday night as well, and both those nights there was like 5 or 6 groups of people that just were like drinking and staying up all night on the beach. Like I guess it's a thing, like weekends people do that. So, but Thursday night there is nobody down there. So we're just walking up and down the beach, chatting. And at one point, we're both looking out over the water, and probably like, I want to say like 50 yards away, we see a very weird, like orangish, kind of amber color-ish, like bird looking thing, like flying, like flapping its wings, like flying, like kind of far away. And I say to my friend, I say, do you see that? What is that? And he said, I've never seen a bird like that before. And we were just like, what the hell is that? That was like maybe 50 yards away. And right around that time when we're kind of like looking at it, we noticed like 10 yards away, like very, very close to us, still kind of over the water, because we're walking on the beach. The waves are splashing up. And like 10 yards away from us, just kind of coasting over the water, we see at first where it's like a, like almost see-through, kind of like half invisible, like craft looking thing in front of us. And the more we're kind of like, I'm like, dude, do you see that? And my friend is like, yeah, what the hell is that? And we're like kind of like trying to like look at it at different angles, like, what is that? Because it was like half invisible almost. Like the way I've explained it is, if you're ever messing around with like clip art in like Microsoft Word when you're a kid, or like on Photoshop or something, if you drag an image into what you're like editing, there's like a little slide bar where you can make it like, if you go down to 0, it's invisible. If you go up to 100, it's completely visible. And if you like put it like at 50, like it's fading out, but you can still see it's there.
So like, kind of like a maybe a cloaking device or something on the deal, or
so if it was a fucking spaceship, then yeah, I would say, I guess. And as I'm looking at it, I'm making out more and more. I start to realize that it is massive. It is huge. Like I can't make heads or tails out of where it starts and where it ends. Like this thing is huge. It is very close to us, and it's coasting like maybe 8 feet above the water, like above the ocean. And so, my first reaction obviously is I'm freaking out, and I'm telling my friend like, dude, are you seeing this? Are you looking at this? And as we're trying, like, it's making no noise. It's like completely silent. It has no like lights or anything like that. Like no flashing, beeping lights or anything that you hear in like common UFO stories. And it's the way that it's like kind of gliding. It looks like gravity is like playing no part on it. Like it's just like very kind of like very majestically just kind of like coasting. And like then hovering. Like hovering. It looked like a fucking spaceship in Star Wars. Like, you know, when they like just show you the scene, like before they go into the ship to like tell you what's going on or whatever, like just this thing just like kind of coasting. And so then we see this like orange amber light, like the same color of this like bird thing that we saw earlier, like kind of like a laser, like ripples through this like craft ship type thing. So like think if you had like a laser pointer and you like shine it through, like you pan it across something, but it wasn't just like one little dot of light. It was like a tall vertical like orange amber light type thing that like ripples through this ship craft thing. And as the light goes through it, you see like all these crazy geometric shapes. And then once the light goes past the certain spot that it's going past, then you don't see the shapes anymore. It goes back to like this kind of like half invisible thing. And so that's when I was like, oh my God, this thing is even bigger than I thought, because that light just came through and was going like so far that we couldn't see anymore. Like this thing was massive. And so once I'm kind of starting to realize, like, I'm freaking out, I'm kind of like jumping up and down, like telling my friend, like, dude, are you seeing this? Like, what is going on? And he's just kind of like calmly, like just staring at it, like he couldn't really process it quite yet. And so once I kind of stopped freaking out, I started like kind of running towards it and like reaching into my pocket. Like I was going to record it, or like ideally I wanted to record myself touching it. Like I just remember thinking like I want to, like, does my hand go through it, or like, can I actually like put my hand on it? And so I like am running in the water, like kind of half jogging, like half like running, like with my hand in my pocket, like I'm the water starting to come up to like halfway through my, like up on my leg, like shin, like midway through my shin. And then it just completely disappears. Like it doesn't zoom off. It doesn't like fly away or anything. Like it just completely disappeared. And my friend got mad at me. He was like, why'd you do that? Why did you run towards it? You made it go away. And I was like, I don't know, man. And then we were like kind of freaking out, and I was like just telling him over and over again. I was like, dude, it was like we saw that bird, and then we saw that big ship thing and that light. And he was like, I know, man, I saw the same thing. You can stop explaining it to me. I was right here.
I was here.
But I was like bugging out. Like I was like, I can't believe we just saw that.
That's crazy.
And so we stayed down there for another like hour and a half, because we were like, we wanted to see it again, or we wanted to see something similar to that. And like maybe 30 minutes later, we did one more time see, and this was like miles away, like that bird type thing again. And when we saw it, we were like, oh, there it is. And we like started running out to try and like go, because it was like far away, like not right in front of us. It was like off to the right. So we kind of like started like running down the beach, but then we lost it and we didn't see it again. But this ship thing was very, very close to us, like to the point to where I could have touched it if I would have had like 5 more seconds to keep running out into the water and like touch it, but it disappeared before I could get to it. And we didn't have drugs, like we didn't even have weed, so we drank a fair amount. But I've been drinking, for a while, and I can definitely tell when I'm to a point where I need to stop drinking or like I'm drunk. I remember every moment of the night. I remember, kind of what time we went down there. And Alex knows me well enough to know when I'm bullshitting. And like he was saying, I kind of didn't let the guy, I almost said his name. The guy that I was with really, really didn't want us to tell anyone. He was like, don't even tell your brother. Don't tell Mary, your sister, we're not going to tell any of the guys because they're going to give us so much shit. They're never going to believe us. Me and this guy that I was with, we've known each other for years, and we are the type of, like, we've known each other since we were kids. So like we used to mess around a lot. It's not like we've ever, told alien stories before or anything like that. But yeah, that's my story.
That's
and now
insane.
It's out on the internet.
One thing I guess I would ask is like, I guess me, if I had seen it, I would have tried to like, I don't know, maybe I would have tried to like chuck something at it and see if I could like hit it with like a rock or something, just see what sound it made, or if like whatever. That would be my like instinct.
Sounds like the exact opposite of what I would do.
I was like, I don't know. I'd be, if I would be like curious, I would be curious to see. I'd be like, what is that? And I'd be like, rock.
Yeah, and then you hit it, and then you get chucked like a rag doll 15 feet into a jetty.
Well, then they feel bad and come back and put me in their back tank for 5 days, and you guys all wonder where the hell I am.
Then I get put in jail because they think I killed you.
I'm just gonna mumble about a bachelor party for the first 45 minutes I'm on the ship, and they're gonna be like, "Oh fuck, we better get him back before his friends miss him."
I'm kind of like you, Ben. I didn't want to throw anything. I didn't think to pick anything up and throw it, but I wanted to get closer to it and touch it.
Yeah,
for some reason, I remember that being my initial, like, once I kind of started calming down, I was like, I just want to, like, I remember thinking, like, is my hand going to go through it? Like, is it like a
right.
ghost of some sort?
Like, I made fun of Travis at the beginning, like, oh, white people always want to run and check something out. But no, for real, like, that's my response would have been like, yo, I gotta figure out what's going on with this thing. Ed Nut says Ben's the type of person to poke a jellyfish with a stick. Damn straight, I poked jellyfish with a stick before. Hell yeah. Walking on the beach, like, the fuck is this? Poke.
You're not wrong. You're the worst kind of person in that regard.
Smack the top out of the jellyfish. Kapow!
Yeah. I hope it just reaches out with one little leg and just...
I'll just ask one of my good buddies that I'm on vacation with to piss on my foot for me.
Doesn't work. That's been disproven. But anyway.
Well,
neither here nor there. But yeah, the fact that it happened and that you didn't tell me like right away the next morning, and I had to catch you telling Mary about it, made me immediately be like, all right, you're clearly a little bit shaken up by this whole thing. Because if it was me, I'd have been telling everybody the next morning, like, you will never.
No, same. Like, I would have done the same thing. I would run back in and be like, yo, did you guys stupid for all being asleep? Y'all should have been on the beach. We saw a dang spacecraft or something. But, like, if you come back and told us, I probably would have done the same thing that I did when Alex told me you were going to tell the story. I probably would have been like, how much of the marijuanas or whatever did you have?
Exactly.
And then you would have been like, no, and we weren't drunk. And then I'd be like, okay, proceed. And then I'd been like, all right, well, I'm just going to take this at face value. My man's was in the right frame of mind. Because I've never been, I've been drunk before, but never drunk. I don't think you hallucinate when you're drunk. At least I've never hallucinated when I've been drunk.
No,
so,
in the regard of hallucination, even if he would have been, 10 joints deep. And
you're not going to hallucinate a whole spacecraft.
that you would have had to have been taking some sort of a psychedelic.
Yeah, shrooms or something would have had to be involved.
If you would have dropped
drug
a tab
test
of,
me.
if you would have dropped a tab of acid or ate a couple mushrooms and then told me this story, it'd be like, well, that's
I'd been like, wow, it was a crazy trip you were on. Like,
yeah, this story is null and void. That's not, you can't really have a credible eyewitness account of something like this if you're under that sort of influence. But
yeah, and the guy that I was with probably wouldn't give a toot if I said his name and said that it was him. I didn't think to text him before, and I know that night he was, and that next day he was kind of like, yeah, I wish you wouldn't have told everyone, because now people are gonna give a shit, and he's got a daughter and he doesn't want, you just never know, like the chances of people hearing the story and being like, oh yeah, that one kid from Nebraska that are really interested, like, it's not gonna happen, but you just never know, dude.
Some backwoods kid from Nebraska was on the beach in Texas, and holy Jesus, there was a spacecraft.
Well, and we've spent countless nights on the beach. We used to camp on the beach, and we used to see like the oil tank liners like way off the coast, and you see the little lights off the coast, and you're like, yeah, that's an oil rig, like you get familiar with that sight of the beach at night, and it's not like it's like a light in the middle of nowhere that you're like, oh, that could be an alien,
You have a baseline of what the beach looks like at night, so when something's different, you're like, what?
Well, especially when it's so close, and two people who are very familiar, one of which still lives down there. He's from that area. He spends a lot of time on the beach. You gain a general idea of what the beach should look like. And then when there's something like that so close to you, it's enough to want to run in the water and try to touch it.
Right.
It's like Travis hopping out of the back of the truck and being like, I'm going to go try and touch that thing. Like there's two different types of people. One
it's like fun. Yeah. When I heard that story, on that podcast, I remember thinking like, fuck, I'm kind of like Travis. Dude.
Travis and I are kindred souls.
And my friend was mad. He was like, dude, it probably wouldn't have gone away. We probably would have seen more of it.
Your friend was the driver of the car, who, if you had got backblasted and back onto the beach, would have left you. You'd been like, oh, hell no.
Yeah. No, it was weird, and I even had like a weird like feeling that like 10 seconds before I saw anything, I remember like kind of looking around the beach and the spot that we were about to walk through when this is where it gets, I'm going to get a little like, okay, like the cold hard, what I saw, no doubt about it, all that I've told, and now I'm going to say a little weird, take it how you want it. But the part of the beach that we were walking on when we both just happened to kind of turn and look and see what we saw at the same time was like way darker than the rest of the, where we were, like, cause there is like restaurants, hotels, resorts behind us on the, on the land side. And all those buildings have lights on, throughout the night. So a lot of the time when you're walking on the beach at this part of the beach that we were on, like there's lights on you, and it's really not that dark. You can really kind of see quite well around you. And, there's lights on all these buildings, and where we were walking when we saw what we saw just so happened to be kind of behind like this big wall that was built maybe like 10 feet like on the land side. So it blocked a lot of those lights. And I remember kind of like, as we were walking into that dark space, that's when we turned and saw what we saw. So I have thought maybe there's some dude who has like a projector or like a hologram type something.
Some dude just
that
fucking
can
with people.
Project things onto, that fucks with people. That's the only thing I've thought of that's been like, that
one dude's up in a hotel room just like, let's see what kind of shenanigans we can get into with the drunk people tonight.
Well, because we went back down on Friday night and Saturday night, and there really are always like groups of people out there. Like, in fact, we went back Friday night at the same time, because we were like, we saw it last night. Let's try and see it again. Like, we were hooked. I honestly, guys, I've thought about it every single day since I've seen it. Like, it's one of those things that you just don't forget.
It sticks with you.
Yeah, but we went down Friday night, and again, same thing. We kind of waited for everyone to pass out, and me and Landowski didn't. Fuck, I just said his name. Robert Landowski, that's his name. Everybody.
I was waiting for it.
So me, that's the guy I saw it with, Landau. Sorry, Robert. But we we never even talked about like, oh yeah, tomorrow night let's like go back down and check it out again. But like 3:00 rolls around and everyone's kind of starting to like pass out and everything, and I'm doing the same thing I did the night before. Like, I'm drinking, but I'm not like getting drunk. Like, I could stop at any time. If I want to drink like 3 or 4 things of, big things of water, I'll probably feel great tomorrow, whatever. And like, we just kind of like made eye contact at one point, and he was like, we're going back down tonight, aren't we? And I was like, yeah. And so we went back down Friday night, and there was like 5 or 6 groups of people just like with coolers and speakers, like partying and stuff, like in the middle of the night, like 3:30 in the morning. And so he's like, yeah, it's kind of common, people want to stay up all night on the beach or whatever. So we kind of walked back and forth, but we never saw anything. And then we went back down Saturday night, and it was even worse. There was like, several people down there partying. And that's the night that we met people and like stayed up all night, like hanging out with people that we had met. And so we never saw anything else. And I've never heard any story that's similar, like any UFO story where people explain something like what I saw.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unfortunate. I thought like maybe because I had paid attention to UFO stuff. Like, I like anything that's weird, ghosts.
Yeah.
UFOs,
paranormal, like weird stuff.
Anything I like hearing about it. I'm not going to jump off, and start believing in all the weird conspiracy theories and stuff, but I like entertaining stuff like that. But I never really like looked into UFOs until this happened. And then once I started like watching documentaries and listening to interviews and podcasts and stuff, I thought, I'll probably hear something like similar to what I saw, but I haven't heard any sort of popular story that's similar to what we saw.
Well, my brother said in the chat, he goes, aliens just trying to enjoy their spring break. Well, it was August, Squash, so
they were just trying to hang out at the beach.
They're just trying to have a good time.
Trying to harvest their water in peace. For whatever
Mack had to
reason.
go fuck it up and try and touch their ship.
Yeah.
They're like, oh god, another human coming close.
Here comes one of the monkeys, man.
Let's get out of here. That's enough.
Definitely my biggest regret, though, was not taking out my phone and taking a picture earlier.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. I was like, that also, like, in the day and age that we live in now, that would have been like, that's one of those things. But I don't know. Sometimes it's just like you don't think about it. You're just so enamored with what's going on. You're just like, whoa,
dude. It was. I mean, you're seeing something you've literally never seen before.
Yeah.
And then there is a SpaceX down there, like 30 minutes away from the beach. There's a SpaceX station or whatever the hell they call it.
Elon was not appreciative of you trying to touch his new tech.
So, I was going to say that if it's not aliens or whatever, like, there's definitely technology that exists that we don't know about. Either that or maybe it was like a hologram of some sort. But at the same time, that's a fucking awesome hologram. I want one of those. That'd be so cool. Like, if someone could make like a projection like that looks that realistic and that's just that like otherworldly, and someone like thought to design that, like, I want one. Like, so no matter how you slice it, someone's up to something that's freaking super cool. And I was lucky enough to see it, but I will be stoked when we get to the point where I actually figure out, like, oh, so that's what I saw. Well, I hope before I die, I can connect dots and realize what the hell I saw.
I don't know, man. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where there's just too many dots out there to not connect them back to. And again, if we've made it, then it's a lot less spooky and a lot less intergalactic. But we have zero privy to the idea that it exists.
Yeah. And
there's technology that exists that's not light years, but in our minds, light years ahead of what we're living in right now that we're going to be living in very, very soon.
True, but according to the what was that thing? Kardashev scale, we've got thousands of years before we get to any type of advancement worth a damn.
Well, you think we're in the year 2020, and that's like a blink of an eye when it comes to the creation of the world, and maybe it does exist and they're just sheltering us from it until it's ready for mass release, or maybe it is interplanetary where we're getting advice or seeking advice from a culture / creation that's literally light years ahead of us. You just don't know.
You don't know, and I hope that one day we do get to know.
I hope so too.
But until that day, stay hungry for knowledge. Look to the stars.
I was wondering if Chad had any questions for Mack about what he saw, or
yeah, chat. Do you guys have anything you want to ask Mack? Anything else you want to put out to us? Any stories that you have? I'll call you out until you're bullshitting. Just kidding. But do you guys have anything? Anything at all?
The story that Mack tells is just way too credible for me, especially with everything that's already known, to think that it would be anything short of false.
Right. And I think I know Mack just enough to say that I believe him. I don't think that.
Well,
Mack
I appreciate it, guys.
I don't think.
Thanks.
I think Mack's gonna walk in here and just be like, "Hey, I'm on your podcast, and this is for clout. I saw aliens." To a podcast that reaches a total of 10 people.
I love you guys dearly, and I pray to God that one day your podcast, you get the audience that you want, and that you can have fun doing it and reach your goals and whatever kind of goals you have with this podcast. But at the same time, I pray to God that, well, no, I won't pray to God this, but I hope it goes to your 10 listeners and they're like, oh, that's awesome, that's a really cool story, and they can make what they want of it. But I hope it dies at that, because I really don't want to be known as someone who freaking saw a UFO story.
Well, the chat would like you to describe the ship once more. My little brother just wants to hear the description of the ship again, because he's mad smart and all sciencey and shit. So
basically, when we first saw it, it kind of looked like a big, we couldn't really tell what it was. So in my brain at first, it kind of looked like a half invisible, just kind of half transparent thing that was kind of floating above the water.
Well, and then, let me interject here for just a second. I sent you that picture of that of the guy on Jerry News, that picture that leaked from his cockpit on his iPhone. And I sent you that picture and I said, I would imagine that what you saw was something similar to this. And you said, unfortunately not. It's not like what I saw at all.
It didn't look anything like what I saw. I mean, what that picture is, that picture that you sent, that, because I read about it that morning too.
Ben, can you bring that picture up again?
Yeah, for sure.
It just kind of, that thing looks, it's far away, so I can't really tell how big it is. And it's flying. So the only thing I have to go off of is I saw this thing very close. Seriously, I go by yards, because I think of a football field, 10 yards away from us, extremely close to us, making no noise. Didn't have any flashing lights or anything, and it was half invisible. You could almost see it. You could tell it was there, but it was almost like you could see through it. But you really weren't looking through it. It's not like you saw what was on the other side of it. You just kind of saw it coasting there.
Right.
And then the more that we looked at it, the more that I realized it was really big, and it was like a craft of some sort. I would explain it as a big ship almost. And so big that I couldn't tell where it started and where it ended. But could tell that it was slide, like, coasting in front of me.
You're going to be able to see this if I drag it onto the screen. Mac, do you have the Twitch channel pulled up or no?
I do not.
Oh, okay. It's no worries then. But
if you're pulling up that picture that of Air Force pilot took a picture of it with his phone, it doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah, so this is what Alex is talking about. I'm gonna cover up mine and Mac's face real fast. We're talking about, this is that craft or that the Air Force pilot saw. Mac is saying that what he saw looked nothing like this. I don't even know what kind of shape it's like a triangular shape, I guess, is what I would say.
It's almost like a V. I would imagine
it looks it looks almost like home plate. It's kind of close to like a home plate.
And I would imagine, because what that picture is, it's a lot more
taller than it is
vertical.
wider.
Yeah.
I
would imagine that what Mac saw was compressed, so it was a lot more horizontal.
It was long. Yeah,
and it was. Yeah,
it was a long boy.
I could easier tell where it started and where it ended tall wise, but long wise I couldn't tell where it started and where it ended.
How tall do you think it was?
So, I'll answer your question by telling you how tall or how high it was first. Like, it was like the bottom of it was floating like maybe 8 feet, maybe 7 feet above the water. And then it was, I would maybe say like 10 feet tall. It wasn't very tall, but it was really, really, really long.
Real flat and long.
And the crazy thing, the thing that sent me like, what is this, is when that like light like rippled through it.
Yeah.
And as the light went through, you could see all these like geometric shapes, and not like triangles and octagons. I'm talking like these shapes I've never ever seen before. And the light was easy like to recognize because it was the same light that weird bird thing that we saw super far away was. Because that bird thing is kind of what started it all. We saw that. We're just like, What is that? But that thing was more like out of like a freaking Harry Potter or like sci-fi movie or so. Like it looked like a bird, like something like earthly, just way like weirder and like a weird color. But that big ship thing, man, that's what I think about more.
Yeah.
Just because it was so close to us. That's like when I like, we kind of weird, but I dream about it all the time. Like when I have dreams about this whole thing, I'm just looking at that ship again, and I'm always like trying to touch it. I don't know why. I'm always like, what is this?
I gotta touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You guys have chat. You guys have anything else? Some people in chat have asked if people confuse you, Mac, with Tom Hardy. So chat thinks you look like Tom Hardy.
Oh, well, hey, I'll take that as a compliment. I think.
I would say so. Tom Hardy's a attractive man.
No, I've never heard that before.
I've never heard you get that before either.
I've had people ask if people have told me Justin Timberlake a little bit, but I've never thought that is accurate. That guy's too handsome.
Spaceman says you're his Tom Hardy.
Love it. I'll go.
You're the new Tom Hardy for Spaceman.
I don't know. I'm a big Batman fan, and I'm also I like the movie Venom, so I'll take it.
One question that I did want to ask you, like, you know how that image from the cockpit was like, it was almost like a disco ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with geographic shapes like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you describe it like similar to that, to where it was like geographic shapes? Like
no, so
or they're just like drawn 2D like lines.
The way you ask that question makes me realize that the way I'm explaining it is given the wrong impression. So it's not like this thing was made up of like some sort of metal that had a bunch of shapes in it. It's like it was like light, like a hologram of some sort. So when I say I saw shapes, it was like if you were to draw a bunch of different types of very complex geometric shapes that all kind of like blend into each other. It wasn't like someone had carved out like a bunch of different shapes on like the side of a ship. It was like as the light went through it, we saw the shapes like in that light, like gosh, as I'm
So it would be like kind of. This is a very simple way of explaining it, I guess. It'd be like if you had a piece of paper, maybe, and like invisible ink was on it, but as you put a light behind the paper, it revealed like the drawings on the
yes,
paper.
that's a really, really good way to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess to take my step a question further was, you hear the accounts of like the flat cylinder, in the sky floating like the typical disc, and
Yeah.
then you hear the accounts of like almost like the disco ball looking shape. But according to what you say, it's not really either of the two.
No. Like it didn't resemble any sort of like flying saucer, flying disc. It didn't resemble any picture that I've seen, including that one that you're talking about. It was more like, and these shapes weren't big; they were really tiny. So as the light goes through, you're seeing like literally millions of these little shapes. We got Reagan and dogs going.
Pupper wanted to say hi.
I know. Reagan is very interested in cooking me a fake dinner.
Oh, that's cute.
I
But
explained it to Mary, and she did like because she does graphic design, so she tried to make like a picture of it.
Yeah.
And it made me realize like, damn, I'm really bad at explaining this thing, because it didn't
Well, it's
really
hard
look
to
like,
explain
it was
something
so otherworldly, man.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm saying it's hard to
like
explain
nothing
something
I ever saw.
when you've never seen anything that resembles it at all.
When you explain, like, if you were to take like like you said, like an invisible marker and draw like super weird complex like many sided shapes, and then put like a light behind it and like shine that through, like as that orange vertical light shined through, that's what it was very similar to.
Gotcha. Hugo said that there's an episode on the revamped Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix where a town saw a spaceship at that night, and they saw the geometric shapes that you're describing, Mac.
Okay, I watched that episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Now that I think about it, I think, but I don't remember hearing anything about geometric shapes. I might have to rewatch it and see. Maybe I missed that part. Because I remember watching that, but I'll rewatch it.
All right.
Well, it sounds congruent with the idea that they're interested in water for some reason. Like many, many, many of these sightings have been over water. So that checks out. The fact that it really can't be described, like they asked that Travis guy, or rather one of the witnesses, what it looked like, what he was looking at, and he was like, have you ever seen a brand new Camaro that like is fresh out on the line, and you just look at it and you think, damn, that's just a specimen, like that's just something beautifully created, like it's that brand new shiny Camaro that you just stop and you're like, damn, that is nice. He's like, imagine that times 10. Like it was just what we saw. You can't really put into words. You can't verbalize the beauty of the specimen that it was. And so that checks out also.
Yeah, I would say it didn't resemble like a car. Like it didn't have any sort of material that I could be like, oh, that's metal, or oh, that's fiberglass, or oh, that's glass, or anything like that. It was just like some sort of weird, like half invisible almost like it looked like it was made up of light more than it was made up of anything else. That's why the more I think about it, the more I think like maybe some sort of hologram or something like that. But on that note, I am gonna bow out because I need to put my son to sleep.
No, that's actually that's good. We've gone hour and 40, so we did a little bit longer episode than normal, but it's
cool.
It's a good stopping point.
If your viewers have any more questions, you can always have me back on. I'll be more than
for sure.
Mac, the last question I have for you.
Sure.
End of the day, I held a gun to your head and said, you either answer this question correctly or your family is wiped off the face of the earth. And you have to tell me with accurate reason what you saw. What would you estimate, or what would you guess what you saw, and basically where do you think that it came from?
I would be very much torn between it was like someone has the most high-tech holograph projection type technology, and they try it out on the beach when it's dark on people who are walking up and down the beach in South Padre, Texas. I would say that, or like my gut says maybe some sort of, just because of how bizarre it was, it didn't look like it was made up of any sort of material that I'm familiar with, like some sort of other dimensional freaking if they're, because scientists have more or less proved that other dimensions exist, and if there's any sort of way to kind of flex in or out of one dimension into another on purpose or on accident or whatever, maybe that. But just because I want to be as reasonable as possible, I would say maybe some sort of crazy projection hologram type technology exists.
Yeah,
so that's my best guess.
All right.
I mean, I think with all that we know at this point in time, it's not completely unreasonable, or even it might be even more unreasonable to think that it's not somehow connected to what pilots have been seeing, of similar to what Commander Fravor saw, and repulsed by something that Bob Lazar was similar to trying to reverse engineer.
The David Fravor story, what I think would maybe be most interesting about his, if I'm trying to relate it to mine, is he talks more about the little ping pong ball thing that was chilling out with this big thing that he might have seen under the water, because they saw white water, where they thought maybe something was underneath the water. And if you've ever listened to his interview with Lex Friedman on the Lex Friedman podcast, I'd suggest that you do, because they go more in depth on David Fravor's whole story. And maybe just because I was by water and this thing was by water, and he described it as if there was something underwater, it was massive, man. And the thing that we saw was just freaking huge. Like, it's so big that it just like brings you to your knees almost, like not literally, but figure of speech. Like, it's just like something that big exists and it can freaking just coast like that, like making no noise. Just it can be invisible. Like, what the hell is that thing, man? But yeah.
All right.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, you're saying the last thing chat wants to know is like your socials so they can follow you, but that's up to you whether or not you want to give that out.
Yeah, my social is very boring. All I do is post pictures of my kids and occasionally make fun of myself for something. But on Instagram, I'm just Mack, MACK _ Brummel, BRUMMEL. And then on Twitter, it's just my name is, I have to look it up because I can't remember. My @ is Old McMackers. So just old, OLD, and then Mick, MC, and then Mackers, MACKERZ. I don't use anything else, Twitter and Instagram. I guess I have a Facebook, but I never get on it or anything.
All right. Alex is typing those up in the chat for us. But anyway,
cool.
Mack, we appreciate you being on, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks everyone in the chat for listening and everything.
Super great episode. And I will get I'll get this out. Oh, true. Also, Hugo, good call out. You guys can listen to Mack is also in a band. It's called Feel Good, just like it sounds, FEEL, and then Good. They are on Spotify. They're on Pandora. I've listened to them on Pandora. Probably find them on YouTube as well.
Apple Music.
Yeah, so Mack is in that, and the lead vocalist is his sister, my buddy Hugo's now wife, and definitely check their EP out. There's an album on the way sometime soon.
Heck yeah.
So, but other than that, thanks for hanging out today and this week, guys. We'll see you all next week, same place, same time.
Go listen to that EP, by the way. That's a sweet little jam.
It's a banger.
Feel Good EP. It's just 3 songs, and it's very it's good emotional ballad style music. It's fun to listen to.
And that's the whole reason why you saw Aliens, was to promote your band.
No. You can find the band on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, pretty much, wherever you find your music.
Anywhere you stream music.
Anywhere Google, you stream music.
We're on all streaming platforms.
So there you go. But until next week, you guys have a safe week. Be safe. Be kind to each other, and stay hungry for knowledge. And we will see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Thanks, guys.